we can start on our final session. It is the session that is closing the conference. It's a very interesting panel. It is Hizmet as a global ethic. I think it's a very exciting panel to end the conference. And so we're a little short on time. I think time is a great issue here. So we have four contributions of 15 minutes, and we have to finish on 1 hour. So it's a race with time, and we must be a little strict on time. I'm sorry about that, but we have to keep our schedule. So we start with Mr. Ibrahim Yunus Rashid. He's with Khairullah Akif-Chevik. He couldn't be with us, and it is integrating Ubuntu and Hizmet values, the role in the success of African Hizmet affiliated schools. It's very interesting, and we're waiting for the speech.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I know we are running out of time, so I'm also keeping my own time, hopefully to finish in 15 minutes. I'm Dr. Ibrahim Yunus Rashid, together with Mr. Khairullah Akif-Chevik, and our study is about integrating Ubuntu and Hizmet values, their role in the success of African Hizmet-affiliated schools. I'm a teacher by profession and also a Mandela Washington Fellow, but I'm also managing a chain of private schools in East Africa. Mr. Khairullah Akif-Chevik is also an educationist based in Netherlands, but he has quite an experience in Africa for over 12 years. So our study, we would like to first state the theoretical framework so that we can all be able to proceed well. The theory behind is servant leadership theory, and it's a people-first based theory where leaders prioritize the growth, well-being, and empowerment of their team members above their own. And we perceive leadership as practice. So it exists in everyday actions, not only in individuals. And it's an emergent approach to leadership where it disrupts researcher positionality, but embraces evolving social processes. And also, we view leadership as collective dialogue, whereby leadership as a flow, overlapping conversations and shared meaning making. But also leadership is not only about position or status, whether you need an office to be a leader, no, but everyone can be a leader in their own context just by taking the right action at the right time. So it's a shift from the individual-based leadership to a co-created and a teamwork practice type of leadership. So why do we approach Ubuntu and Hizmet values in the leadership perspective? It's because Hizmet itself, the mission, the vision, it's embedded in leadership. We all have seen all other presentations about how Hizmet is taking the lead in educational activities, in positive action, community engagement and humanitarian works, peaceful coexistence through art and culture, IFLC, and so on, youth and women empowerment, but also how Hizmet takes leadership in volunteerism, environmental conservation, and many other positive action. So, as we are looking at Hizmet values, now we want to see the African approaches to leadership as a communal practice. And here is when we talk about Ubuntu. I am because we are, or I am because you are. And the African philosophical concept of Ubuntu, it emphasizes on shared humanity and the interconnectedness of all people. And it's strongly rooted in the Bantu community, southern of Africa, and the view that we cannot be fully human apart from others. We need others. It's a collective responsibility. A person with Ubuntu is welcoming, is hospitable, is warm, generous, and willing to share. So let me share with you a short activity so that you can understand the African way of leadership. These are proverbs, and I'm a contributor to a book chapter of riddles and proverbs for Africa in an African way of leadership. Hopefully in September it will be published by Emerald. So these 5, just I chose some proverbs. For example, the first one, which says, a single bracelet does not jingle. So a bracelet has stones. When it is only one stone, it doesn't make sound. But when you have stones together, then it can make sound, and that sound can be meaningful. Together, we can be meaningful. Wisdom is like a baobab tree. If you have seen a baobab tree, it's very huge. So one person cannot surround and hug a baobab tree. We need to hold hands all together so that we can hug a baobab tree. A bird will always use another bird's feathers to feather its own nest. While the birds lose their feathers in a natural way, one can think that those feathers go to waste. But in an African perspective, those same feathers can be used to create homes for other birds. A leader is like a shepherd. He eats after the flock is fed, not before. The chief is a servant of the people. Maybe we would expect a chief to be the highest ranking, but at the same time, a chief serves their people. So let me also share with you some other Ubuntu-related traditions in Africa. For example, in Botswana, you have the Lefisa practice, whereby it's a traditional practice where families borrow livestock for milk and care, and they return them after some time. And if there's any offspring during that borrowing time, the offspring remains with the borrower, helping them to grow their herd. Or the Letsema practice, whereby it's a traditional practice of communal cooperation. People come together for labor-intensive tasks like farming, building, or harvesting. Ubuntu looks, sounds, and feels like regular community gatherings to discuss issues, share experiences, and make collective decisions. Elders convene people and they discuss matters. Sharing resources like food, shelter, collective child rearing. It is very common to hear in Africa, it takes a village to raise a child. Conflict resolution through dialogue and reconciliation. Storytelling and art that teaches the concepts of Ubuntu. And setting up support network for people, caring for the sick, helping people who are going through difficult times, but also communal ceremonies such as weddings, funerals, and other traditional rituals. In Rwanda, you see Umuganda. Umuganda is a concept that is about coming together for a common purpose. And it is officially actually established as a mandatory national program where people would come and help to build and develop their communities. Akwaba, this is from Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, the Akan people. It translates to welcoming, and Ubuntu is more about welcoming, hospitality, warmth, and inclusivity. Teranga in Senegal, which means, again, hospitality, welcoming guests with your best, even if you have little, but you are ready to share. Harambe, this is from Kenya, whereby people would come together, all together, and do something. It could be even fundraising, could be sharing something, but they do it together. In Tanzania, Utu, Nia, and Ujamaa. Utu being the short form of Ubuntu, I am because we are, Nia meaning purpose, intention. And it is the intention, the purpose, to commit for a collective effort. And Ujamaa being the self-reliance and communal practices in life. In Madagascar, Fihavanana. Fihavanana is hospitality again. It is how people are connected and being in a relationship with others, but it's also a moral and a social principle. All these are ways in African perspective where leadership is viewed as how people can come together for a common purpose. And you have the roof being the vision, the pillars being how it's done, and the roots being those tenets, those leadership perspectives that actually build the African community. So our study, the motive was because Hizmet affiliated schools are very successful in Africa. So the study was motivated due to the proven success of those schools. So the researchers were curious to know whether the success and the quick embracement and acceptance of those schools by the local indigenous had nothing to do with the closeness of Hizmet values and the already existing Ubuntu philosophy in Africa. These are the research questions. Because of time, I'll go very quickly. How do educators interpret and apply Ubuntu and Hizmet values in their roles and school practices? How are these values reflected in the students' behavior? And what challenges affect the implementation of Ubuntu and Hizmet values? Methodology, qualitative, 15 interviews, 6 weeks of observations, document analysis, and thematic coding and analysis. Emergent themes: value integration in school culture, servant leadership and staff collaboration, student agency and growth, community engagement and outreach, alumni mobilization for social projects, implementational challenges. Let's go a little bit deeper. How these values were lived in the daily school life. So teachers were role models, and they went beyond teaching and serving students personally. Family-like teacher and student relationships, where there was respect without fear. Character education in their daily behavior with integrity, humility, and responsibility. Multicultural and interfaith harmony with diversity lived peacefully. Individual attention to every learner so that no student is lost or no student is left behind. Strong school and family partnerships with shared responsibility for upbringing. Remember, it takes a village to raise a child. Discipline through family, self-control and restorative approach, but academic excellence from moral motivation and its effort driven by respect. Service and community engagement, where students and alumni, they practice social responsibility, and a unique school atmosphere with calm, respect, and values-driven culture. Teachers being self-fulfilled, highly motivated, and self-driven, ready to serve their students. Of course, there were challenges. Challenges in aligning between Ubuntu flexibility and the Hizmet structure, which is more institutionalized, but also perceived as cultural imposition in some contexts when Hizmet values are being brought in those contexts. But also some inconsistent understanding among staff, especially those staff who do not yet know what Hizmet stands for. But also, it seems that when there is a lack of institutional support to contextualize Hizmet, again, it becomes a challenge. So, key findings of our study: 2 ways, similarity model, but also the differences. And the similarity model is not about equality, but it is about complementing and resonating. Ubuntu and Hizmet values complementing each other, resonating. Ubuntu's pillars of interconnectedness, compassion, and social justice, resonating with Hizmet's emphasis on human dignity, ethical conduct, diversity, and peaceful action. Differences still remain, where Ubuntu is rooted in indigenous African communalism, while Hizmet springs from Islamic humanism. And Hizmet employs formal institutions and global outreach, while Ubuntu operates through local customs, traditions, and restorative practices. You will be surprised, I have 2 minutes. Mwalimu Nyerere says our country is faced with 3 major enemies: ignorance, poverty, and diseases, while Hizmet version says 3 diseases of modern society, Islamic society, is facing are ignorance, poverty, and disunity. You will see how close they are. So the comparison between Ubuntu principles and Gulen's teachings, you'll see they all resonate, they all complement each other. Where Ubuntu speaks of I am because we are, Gulen preaches for living for others and finding yourself in services. And the rest, as you can read in front. Conclusion: The synergy of Ubuntu and Hizmet values offers a compelling framework for nurturing compassionate, socially responsible, and academically strong students in Africa. And Hizmet-affiliated school success owes to leadership approach that is culturally responsive and adapts African agency, African knowledge systems, and African contextual realities. These are the recommendations of the study. It's a long paragraph, but I would just like to finish with our study finished with more questions. And these are questions that maybe further studies can be done. To what extent was the founder of the Hizmet movement intentionally in aligning the movement's values and practices with the local philosophies and cultural traditions in the pursuit of peace, harmony, and partnership around the shared societal challenges? To what degree can this intentionality be attributed to the founder's moral ingenuity and audacity, and to what extent did it emerge through followers' interpretation, adaptation, and enactment of the founder's vision, within the local context, of course, and what key factors influence this process? And how do shared societal problems function as enabling conditions that bring social movements and local communities into resonance and collaborative partnership? Thank you very much. 15 minutes.